Imagine a world where ideas could get you arrested, where thinking too deeply about the wrong topics might land you in hot water with the authorities. Now, picture a man who lived his entire life by the clock, rarely venturing beyond the borders of his hometown. A man whose mind was so sharp, so disciplined, that he would revolutionize philosophy forever. This is the story of Immanuel Kant, one of history's greatest thinkers. But in 1793, Kant found himself in a dangerous situation. He had just published an essay that would shake the very foundations of religious authority, and the Prussian government was not happy. Picture this: a small study in Königsberg, Prussia, bookshelves lining the walls, a simple desk covered in papers, and there sits Kant, his quill scratching across parchment as he pens his latest work, Religion Within the Bounds of Bare Reason. But what was so threatening about this book? Why did it provoke such a strong reaction from those in power? You see, Kant wasn't attacking faith itself. No, his crime was far more subtle, and in the eyes of the authorities, far more dangerous. He dared to suggest that morality should come from reason, not from blind obedience to religious institutions. This was a radical idea in 18th century Prussia. The state and the church were deeply intertwined. To question one was to question both, and Kant's clear, logical arguments were like a beacon of light cutting through centuries of dogma. The reaction was swift. King Frederick William II, a man known for his religious conservatism, saw Kant's work not as philosophy, but as political dissent in disguise. He ordered surveillance on the aging philosopher. Kant's every move, every word, was now under scrutiny. But the true hammer blow came in the form of a letter, delivered to Kant's home. It carried a chilling message: stop writing about religion, or face severe consequences. The threat was clear: continue down this path, and you'll lose your right to teach, to publish, to share your ideas with the world. Imagine that moment: Kant, holding that letter, realizing that his life's work, his dedication to reason and truth, had put him in the crosshairs of one of Europe's most powerful monarchs. What would you do in that situation? Would you back down, prioritizing your safety and career? Or would you stand firm, risking everything for what you believe is right? This was the impossible choice facing Immanuel Kant, a man who had spent his entire life in pursuit of knowledge and understanding. Now found himself at a crossroads. His ideas, which he believed could help create a more just and rational world, were now deemed too dangerous for public consumption. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Kant, known for his unwavering commitment to truth, made a surprising decision. He chose silence, at least on the surface. For the next few years, Kant refrained from publishing anything directly related to religion. He focused on other areas of philosophy, biding his time. But make no mistake, this wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Kant understood something profound about the power of ideas. He knew that once an idea is out in the world, it can't be easily contained. His work on reason and morality had already begun to spread, to influence other thinkers across Europe. And so, while Kant himself remained quiet on religious matters, his ideas continued to reverberate. They were discussed in salons, debated in universities, and whispered about in coffee houses. The very attempt to silence Kant had, in a way, amplified his message. This period of enforced silence didn't diminish Kant's impact. If anything, it enhanced it. It showed the world that ideas are more powerful than any decree, any threat of censorship. Kant's quiet resistance became a testament to the enduring strength of rational thought. As the years passed, the political climate in Prussia began to shift. The pressure on Kant eased, and he was eventually able to return to writing about religion and ethics. But by then, the damage, or rather, the progress, was already done. Kant's ideas about moral autonomy, about the importance of reason in ethical decision-making, had taken root. They would go on to influence generations of philosophers, reshape our understanding of ethics, and even play a role in the development of modern human rights. So, what can we learn from this chapter in Kant's life? Perhaps it's that true revolutions often begin not with grand gestures, but with quiet, persistent thought. That ideas, once unleashed, have a power that transcends the individuals who first conceived them. Or maybe the lesson is about the courage it takes to question established norms, even when doing so puts you at risk. Kant's willingness to challenge religious authority, to argue for a morality based on reason rather than ritual, was truly revolutionary for his time. As we reflect on Kant's story, we're left with some pressing questions for our own era. In a world where information flows freely, yet misinformation abounds, how do we balance the need for open discourse with the potential dangers of unchecked ideas? Are there still thoughts too dangerous to be expressed? And what about the role of philosophy in our modern society? Has the discipline that Kant devoted his life to lost its relevance? Or is it more crucial than ever as we grapple with complex ethical dilemmas in fields like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and climate change? These are not easy questions to answer, but perhaps that's the point. Kant's legacy isn't about providing simple solutions, but about encouraging us to think deeply, to question rigorously, and to never stop seeking understanding. As we face our own challenges in the 21st century, Kant's story reminds us of the power of ideas to shape the world. It challenges us to be brave in our thinking, to stand up for what we believe is right, even when it's difficult. And most importantly, it reminds us that true progress often comes not from those who shout the loudest, but from those who think the deepest, from those who, like Kant, are willing to question everything, even when the world tells them to stay silent. So the next time you're faced with a difficult moral decision, or when you're tempted to accept something simply because it's what you've always been told, remember Immanuel Kant. Remember the philosopher who dared to argue that our capacity for reason is our greatest moral guide, and ask yourself, what would Kant do? In the quiet halls of 18th century Prussia, a philosophical storm was brewing. Immanuel Kant, the meticulous professor known for his clockwork routine, had just ignited a controversy that would shake the foundations of religious authority. The year was 1793, and Kant's latest work, Religion Within the Bounds of Bare Reason, was about to set the intellectual world ablaze. Picture this: a dimly lit study, quills scratching parchment, and the weight of centuries of religious doctrine hanging in the air. Kant, with his piercing gaze and powdered wig, dared to challenge the very essence of morality's source. His radical proposition? That true ethics must spring from human reason alone, not from the rituals and dogmas of organized religion. To the Enlightenment thinkers, this was a breath of fresh air. But to the state-backed church, it was nothing short of heresy. Kant wasn't just questioning religious practices, he was undermining the entire power structure that relied on unquestioning obedience. The philosopher's sin wasn't atheism, it was something far more dangerous: the empowerment of individual conscience over institutional authority. As word of Kant's ideas spread, tension mounted in the corridors of power. The Prussian king, Frederick William II, saw not just a philosophical treatise, but a potential spark for rebellion. If people believed they could be moral without the church's guidance, how long before they questioned the divine right of kings? Kant's argument was deceptively simple yet profoundly revolutionary. He drew a sharp line between moral law and religious law, elevating individual conscience above church doctrine. In his view, organized religion often muddied the waters of ethical clarity, replacing genuine moral reasoning with blind adherence to rituals and rules. This wasn't just an academic exercise. Kant was pushing the Enlightenment ideals to their logical conclusion, placing reason on the throne as the supreme guide for human behavior. It was a direct challenge to centuries of religious authority, and the church wasn't about to take it lying down. The backlash was swift and severe. Royal censors scrutinized Kant's every word, looking for ammunition to silence him. The philosopher found himself walking a tightrope between intellectual integrity and political survival. How could he continue to spread his ideas without incurring the wrath of those in power? As the pressure mounted, Kant faced a crucial decision. Should he recant his views to appease the authorities, or stand firm in his convictions at the risk of losing everything? The stakes couldn't have been higher, not just for Kant, but for the future of philosophical inquiry itself. This wasn't just about one man's ideas. It was a battle for the very soul of morality. Could ethics stand on its own, supported solely by human reason? Or did it require the scaffolding of religious institutions to keep it upright? The controversy surrounding Kant's work raises questions that still resonate today. In a world where religious and secular values often clash, how do we determine the true source of moral authority? Can reason alone guide us to ethical behavior? Or do we need the structure and tradition of organized religion? As we delve deeper into Kant's radical idea, we're forced to confront our own assumptions about morality and its origins. The philosopher's quiet resistance to censorship and his unwavering belief in the power of reason continue to challenge us centuries later. Kant's strategic silence in the face of threats speaks volumes about the power of ideas to outlast their oppressors. While he may have been forced to tread carefully in his later years, the impact of his work was already set in motion. The seeds of moral autonomy had been planted, and they would continue to grow long after Kant himself was gone. This is more than just a historical anecdote. It's a testament to the enduring power of philosophical inquiry to shape the course of human thought. Kant's ideas on moral autonomy laid the groundwork for modern ethical frameworks, influencing everything from human rights to secular governance. As we reflect on Kant's struggle, we're reminded of the ongoing battles for intellectual freedom around the world, from banned books to online censorship. The tension between authority and individual conscience continues to play out on the global stage. The story of Kant's near silencing serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of free thought. It reminds us that even the most brilliant minds can be threatened when their ideas challenge the status quo. But it also offers hope, a reminder that truly revolutionary ideas have a way of persisting, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. In the end, Kant's legacy isn't just about the specific arguments he made. It's about the courage to question, to reason, and to seek truth beyond the boundaries of conventional wisdom. His work continues to challenge us to think critically about the foundations of our moral beliefs and the role of authority in shaping our ethics. As we grapple with complex moral dilemmas in the 21st century, Kant's emphasis on reason and individual conscience remains as relevant as ever. From bioethics to artificial intelligence, we're constantly faced with situations that test the limits of traditional moral frameworks. The question Kant posed over 2 centuries ago still echoes: can morality stand on its own, guided by reason alone? Or do we need the structure and tradition of religious institutions to navigate the complexities of ethical decision-making? This isn't just an academic debate. It has real-world implications for how we structure our societies, create laws, and make personal moral choices. Kant's ideas challenge us to examine the source of our ethical beliefs and to question whether we're truly thinking for ourselves or simply following inherited doctrines. As we look to the future, Kant's struggle reminds us of the ongoing need to protect intellectual freedom and the right to question established norms. In an era of information overload and competing ideologies, the ability to think critically and reason independently is more crucial than ever. The story of Kant's brush with censorship also serves as a reminder of the power of ideas to outlast their creators. While Kant himself may have been silenced for a time, his concepts of moral autonomy and the primacy of reason continue to shape philosophical discourse to this day. In a world where authority is often wielded to suppress dissent, Kant's quiet resistance offers a model of intellectual courage. It challenges us to stand firm in our convictions, even when faced with overwhelming pressure to conform. As we navigate the complex moral landscape of the modern world, Kant's emphasis on individual conscience and rational inquiry provides a valuable compass. It reminds us that true ethical behavior comes not from blind obedience to external rules, but from careful reasoning and a genuine commitment to doing what is right. The tension between individual moral autonomy and institutional authority that Kant grappled with continues to play out in various forms today. From religious freedom laws to ethical AI development, we're constantly negotiating the boundaries between personal conviction and societal norms. Kant's legacy challenges us to be active participants in shaping our moral universe, rather than passive recipients of handed-down ethics. It invites us to engage in the difficult but rewarding work of ethical reasoning, to question our assumptions, and to strive for a more rational and just world. As we close this chapter of philosophical history, we're left with a profound question that echoes through the centuries. In your own life, do you believe that morality needs the foundation of religion, or can it stand alone, supported by the pillars of human reason? The answer, like Kant's ideas themselves, has the power to shape the course of human thought for generations to come. In the quiet halls of Königsberg, a philosopher's pen fell silent. The year was 1794, and Immanuel Kant, the man who had dared to challenge the very foundations of religious authority, found himself at a crossroads. The Prussian king's decree hung heavy in the air, a threat that could have silenced lesser minds forever. But Kant was no ordinary thinker. As the candlelight flickered across his study, Kant made a decision that would echo through the centuries. He would obey the royal order, at least in public. No more writings on religion would flow from his quill to the printing press. To the outside world, it might have seemed like capitulation, a brilliant mind bowing to the whims of power. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind closed doors, in hushed conversations with his students, and in the margins of his private notebooks, Kant's ideas continued to evolve. His silence wasn't born of fear, but of strategy. He understood that sometimes the most powerful resistance is the one that endures. Picture the scene. Kant, his face etched with the lines of deep thought, leaning in close to a young student. Remember, he might have whispered, "Morality must come from reason, not ritual." These words, dangerous in their simplicity, were seeds planted in fertile minds. destined to grow long after Kant himself was gone. As the years passed, Kant's philosophy found new ways to express itself. He turned his attention to other subjects, embedding his ethical principles into works on metaphysics, aesthetics, and politics. To the untrained eye, these might have seemed innocuous, but for those who knew how to look, the revolutionary ideas were still there, hiding in plain sight. Imagine the tension in the air as Kant's students gathered in secret, poring over his latest writings. They would have felt the thrill of forbidden knowledge, the sense that they were part of something greater than themselves. With each passing year, a new generation of thinkers emerged, shaped by Kant's ideas even as the man himself remained outwardly compliant. Johann Gottlieb Fichte, a firebrand in his own right, took Kant's concepts and pushed them further. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, with his grand system of dialectics, built upon the foundation Kant had laid. Across Europe, in salons and universities, whispers of a new way of thinking began to spread. But what of Kant himself? Picture him in his later years, still adhering to his famously rigid daily routine, a solitary figure taking his daily walk through Königsberg, clockwork precise. To passersby, he might have seemed like any other aging professor, yet behind those eyes lay a mind that had reshaped the very nature of ethics and human understanding. Kant once said, "I must act in such a way that I can will my action to become universal law." In choosing strategic silence over martyrdom, he lived this principle. He understood that his ideas were bigger than any one moment in time. By preserving himself and his ability to influence future generations, he ensured that philosophy itself would endure. As the 18th century drew to a close, Kant's influence had spread far beyond the borders of Prussia. His ideas, once deemed too dangerous for public consumption, were now being debated in the great intellectual centers of Europe. The censors who had sought to silence him found themselves fighting a losing battle against the tide of history. But what was it about Kant's philosophy that proved so enduring? At its core was a radical notion that human beings are capable of determining right from wrong through reason alone. This concept of moral autonomy struck at the heart of traditional authority structures, both religious and political. Imagine the power of this idea in a world still dominated by monarchs and clerics. It suggested that each individual had not just the ability, but the responsibility to think for themselves. No wonder the Prussian king had felt threatened. Kant's philosophy wasn't just about ethics, it was about freedom. As we look back on Kant's choice, we're left with a profound question. Was his silence a form of compromise, or the ultimate act of principle? On one hand, he ceased his public critiques of religion and authority. On the other, he found ways to ensure his ideas would outlive any temporary censorship. Consider the parallels to our own time. In an age of social media and instant communication, how do we balance the urge to speak out immediately against the need for strategic thinking? Are there times when staying silent, at least publicly, can actually serve a greater purpose? Kant's legacy challenges us to think beyond the moment. He showed that true influence isn't always about making the loudest noise or taking the most visible stand. Sometimes, it's about playing the long game, about planting ideas that will grow and flourish long after we are gone. As the sun sets on our story, picture Kant in his final days, an old man now, but with eyes still bright with the fire of ideas. He might have looked back on his life and wondered, did I do enough? Will my work survive? Little could he have known that centuries later, his name would be synonymous with moral philosophy itself. The irony is striking. The very ideas that almost got Kant banned forever are now taught in universities around the world. His concept of the categorical imperative, the idea that we should act only in ways that could become universal laws, has become a cornerstone of ethical thinking. But perhaps the most powerful lesson from Kant's story is this: ideas, once released into the world, have a life of their own. They can survive censorship, outlast political regimes, and continue to shape human thought for generations to come. As we close this chapter of intellectual history, we're left with a final, provocative question. In a world still grappling with issues of censorship and free speech, what would Kant do today? Would he choose public defiance or strategic silence? And more importantly, what will you choose when faced with your own moral crossroads? The echoes of Kant's decision still resonate today, challenging us to consider the power of quiet resistance, the danger of forbidden ideas, and the enduring impact of moral autonomy. In a world that often demands instant reactions and public stands, perhaps there's wisdom in Kant's approach, in choosing to be a philosopher first, and a rebel second. As the candle of history flickers, casting long shadows across the centuries, Kant's legacy reminds us that true revolution often begins not with a shout, but with a whisper. It starts not on the grand stage of public debate, but in the quiet corners of the human mind, where reason and morality intertwine to shape the future of human thought.